I know someone who's got, I think they're at like 40,000, and another friend who's at 20,000 followers. They make over six figures.
Yeah.
And I tell people I used to work in public relations, but I don't think at 10 years into the industry, I would have been able to make the financial growth that I have working as a content creator.
It's almost no correlation. There's like some people who with 12 million followers who are struggling, and there are people with 150,000 followers who are absolutely crushing it.
This is Creator, the podcast from Matador Network. I'm your host, Ross Borden, and I believe creators are the future of all global advertising. So join me as I sit down with top creators to hear about how they got started, the challenges they've overcome, and the tips you need to become a full-time creator.
All right, welcome back to Creator, the podcast. Today we have an amazing creator and a dear friend of mine, Rene Daniella. Rene is really a lifestyle creator. We've worked with you a ton on the travel side and destination content, but you do beauty, fitness, wellness, like pretty much all the major categories. Rene, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely love my Matador Network family. So really excited to be on the podcast.
For those who don't follow you, Rene, tell people about yourself and how you became a creator, how long you've been doing this.
Sure. Okay, so I realized this year is my 10-year anniversary.
Congrats.
So I definitely met all of you at Matador pretty early on in my career, I would say. But yeah, I've been doing social media for 10 years. Full-time content creator. I started out with like women's curly hair, natural hair. If anyone was familiar with the movement, there was like a natural hair movement online. So my background was public relations. I went to my master's in Paris. And while I was there, I was creating content around my natural hair, just naturally, organically. And I really started to grow online. And that is kind of where the light bulb went off of like, oh, I've cultivated an audience on here. Like, you know, what ways can I work with this or leverage this? Influencer wasn't a term at the time.
This was Instagram though.
This was Instagram, yeah. So this is definitely Instagram. I did create
Early
a blog
days.
as part of my course requirements. And I think blogging was kind of, I'm more familiar and like more established career field at that time, but I wasn't really a blogger. I just happened to have a blog as a requirement for my course, but I made it around natural hair because that was the audience I started developing on Instagram. Again, pre-influencer terminology, pre the industry.
Right.
But I lived in Paris, and so I was also traveling. My family was in Germany. My mum is British, so I also was going to England a lot. And when you're in Europe, it's easy to bounce around. So that was where I developed my travel component to my content. And so between those two, it just really started to blossom from what was just kind of a random hobby, I guess, of sharing, you know, journaling online digitally to then becoming an industry. And when I connected with you guys, I think it was after I'd already worked with Passport Heavy, which was kind of the nice bridge from me being a struggling new influencer pre-industry when there wasn't a lot of funding, a lot of financial opportunities, it wasn't established. I went and I lived in Colombia. I worked with Passport Heavy. I was hosting travel videos.
With Jabril, yeah.
With Jabril. Shout out Passport Heavy and Jabril family. Appreciate them. But yeah, and it was during that time that the influencer industry started to blossom. And so when I finished, I think I was there for about 7-8 months. When I finished living in Colombia, I was moving to the US. I think I ended up settling in LA. And influencer was a term. And now that's where you had a lot of the brands coming and reaching out directly and offering budgets. Whereas I think, you know, initially it might have been product exchanges or event invites. And then I connected with you guys at Matador Network, and that's where I started working more so in getting paid travel opportunities, where I think we went to Dominica, Louisiana, tourism. Where else have we been? I feel like there's another.
Oh yeah, there's got to be more than
yeah.
that. I was thinking, I remember the party and pamper spot that you did for.
Yeah, that was for Louisiana,
with
and that was
Nola
amazing.
for Louisiana.
Absolutely.
Dominica was one of my favorites. That we did 2 videos
Mine
with
too.
you in Dominica. I still haven't made it to Dominica, but that place
After seeing
looks
those videos,
amazing.
how could you not?
I know.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
I'm dying to take my kids there because I've got 2 little adventure kids and.
Oh, I know. I remember
like,
always seeing pictures of your son and now your baby girl, but I remember always you going on vacations and being in fabulous places with them. So.
And you're tell me about, like, I mean, we'll get into all the other stuff that you do, but related to Dominica, I wanted to ask about freediving. Because this is something you're like really passionate about.
Very
and I remember you were able to do some diving in Dominica. So how did you get into freediving?
Okay, so when I was a child, a wee little burn. I learned how to swim quite early, like at 3 years old. My family, we were very big on going to the pools, going to theme parks, going really, I guess, controlled places like that. But I think that kind of spawned that interest and desire to be in the ocean and the waters. And in 2020, I decided to treat myself going to learn how to free dive. I went to Barbados, which is actually, I was telling Scott, that I connected with the Barbados Tourism Board through you guys, through email. You guys had connected me with them. And while I was there, it was really nice. I got to do a good feature for them to showcase what was travel during COVID like in Barbados. So I got some experience working with them, but I also got to go and do some incredible diving. And I got my certification in free diving. So as someone who was super passionate about swimming and snorkeling, I realized like I cannot hold my breath long enough to explore and experience, to the depths that I want to. So I did scuba diving, and then with that I thought, oh, but it's a little bit constricted because you've got all of the equipment on. So free diving was that next venture, and the minute I learned how to hold my breath for an extended time, I also experienced kind of the euphoria and peace and like calmness of the process of free diving.
How long can you hold your breath now?
To be honest, there's people far, far, far more impressive than what I could ever do. I'm very much on the recreational beginner level, but I got to 3 minutes and 25 seconds of a breath hold. So
that's like 2 minutes longer than I would be able to.
You know what? That's what you think, and then you take these courses and you get all the training, and
so that's a full certification, like PADI.
Yeah, it's PADI, and there's one called AIDA, AIDA. I forget what the acronym stands for, but yeah, that one is another certification program where you do learn basically how to free dive, and we've got multiple levels to it. I've gotten to the second level, but there's multiple levels after that, and then there's definitely people who do it as a sport or competitively.
Hardcore. Yeah, I saw a documentary about that recently.
I was gonna say maybe you've seen it.
Dude, that was pretty heavy. That was like where they're passing out when they're
it's intense
there, and they need to get like CPR on the surface.
Yeah, and they do like oxygen chambers and all sorts of different treatments because it is quite severe what people do. I very much just on that cute recreational level where I go and look at shipwrecks or sea life. I did end up getting over to it was Moorea, French Polynesia, to go.
The humpbacks.
With the humpback whales. It's phenomenal.
That's like, is that not the best?
It's one of those ones that I think it's really aligned with on the level of my addiction to going to carnival. Like I go to Trinidad Carnival, I go to Crop Over in Barbados, I've been to Jamaica's Carnival. Love it. Now I have to go back to French Polynesia. I don't mind if I island top, go somewhere else, but I need to go experience diving with the humpback whales every year. So I will be back in October or in the season because it was just so beautiful and such a majestic experience. I loved it.
I've been lucky enough to experience incredible wildlife scenarios, safaris, but like being in the water with a 60,000 pound mother humpback and her calf is nothing really compares to that.
So beautiful, yeah.
So that's sort of the adventure side, but you also, I'd say you're like one of the more diverse creators that I know in terms of you do home improvement stuff, you do partnerships with Google, Disney, hair care, beauty products, travel. So did that all just happen organically, or what came first, or what is the brand ride been for you?
It was definitely an evolution. So if we went back the 10 years, I was starting out in natural hair, and then I was dabbling in travel. And as the industry developed, you did see kind of certain industries or certain niches that I would say developed faster in terms of their relationship with social media and the way they leveraged it, the way the brands leveraged it. So beauty, skincare, hair care. Travel is one that I worked with often through you guys, and the occasionally connecting with tourism boards. But when we talk about the financial aspect, and one of the ones that has really what I found is most intriguing, and I'm always surprised by, the financial capacity in this industry, especially being fully aware that I am on a level that there's people far, far, far beyond, what I'm earning and the consistent income I've been able to generate. But yeah, so I would say, even though I started out in women's hair and travel, it became a really reflection of my everyday life. And I think that is just a product of because I was sharing content in those spaces, and I was doing it in a way that was very organic. So I was sharing everything from my apartment decor journey to then my home ownership journey, and showing how I decorate that. And even when I decorated my home, I decorated with the intention of I'm a full-time content creator. I am going to be utilizing this space. I understood that my background and my environment were ultimately tools that would help build the engagement or build the relationship or connection or like making my content more memorable and stand out to the audience by me having a nice background. So when I bought my house, I already knew instantly. I was like, okay, great. I set the intention. I knew every room I wanted to be something where when you see it on camera,
It's sick,
gonna
by the
make
way.
an
Your house is
impression.
amazing.
Thank you.
It's like really, I mean, you could be an interior designer for sure.
I know.
That could
You
be
know what? You might
that
see
could be
that
your next
venture
career.
one day. Honestly, I feel like, and I'm in my 30s now. I'm like, I started this industry in my 20s. One of the beautiful things I think about this industry is that it ages with you, and that the audience and your demographic ages with you, and that there's a lot of spaces for people. You know, we can get into this later, but just on a broad spectrum, this industry really is relevant to so many different niches, so many different age groups, so many different environments and all sorts. But yeah, so doing all that house content and being that intentional about creating a space that would add to my narrative as I create content, I feel like you can take that same intentional, same mindset, and you apply it to different aspects of the content and categories that you want to work in. So I could niche down and have stayed in travel or have stayed more so in just women's beauty. But what's fun is that in the lifestyle bubble, we all live these everyday lives. If I'm willing to share stories about them and be intentional
Sure.
and, let people in on those different aspects and treat it like a business. That's something I always tell people as well. I think I've been able to broaden the different niches that I get to cover or the topics that I cover because I was quite intentional and consistent with covering content or creating content in those spaces. And so it really allowed me to then go to a brand like Google and be like, oh, well, I work in travel. Actually, my pitch to Google, which I started working with about 2 years ago, I had been on a press trip with Jamaica Tourism Board. The gentleman that they had capturing our content and creating content for us, he had his traditional cameras, but he also was using a Google Pixel. I thought the quality of the photos were incredible. And as a creator, we're always trying to elevate our content and get better quality. And so I said, oh, what phone are you using? He's like, oh, there's a Google Pixel. I said, oh, that's great to know. Like, I haven't tried that before. So I just thought, oh, I'll reach out to Google Pixel because I really enjoyed, this phone. And I want to see, what other maybe products they have or maybe any kind of opportunities they might have. I did a cold pitch email. I found one on looking at a press release for Google, and I reached out and was like, hey, I'm really a big fan of your phone. I've seen the great quality. I work as a content creator, but I do a lot of travel content. I'd love to, showcase your phone and its talents on my travels. So they had responded. They were like, hey, thanks for reaching out. We love your content. We're happy to incorporate you or happy to have you join the Google Pixel or Team Pixel, I think is what we're called. And yeah, 2 years later, I've been working with them. We've had some great opportunities.
Amazing.
Traveled with them. We've been to Puerto Rico. I've been to New York with them. I've been to Coachella twice.
I saw the Coachella stuff.
So
So that came from a cold pitch email.
That came from a cold pitch email.
I think a lot of creators are like, they're intimidated or they're like, that'll never work. Like reaching out.
Yeah.
Google's a great example because it's like,
it's a big
it's like
brand
reaching out to
name.
Apple
Yeah,
or
that you
Google.
feel like they won't notice me. They do.
But the hack for you is you actually found an actual person, a name, an email from a press release. And then you wrote like a heartfelt email of like, I've used your products. I love the photo from this new camera.
Yep.
And then it worked.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do tell people, I think having a background in public relations has been quite helpful when I was starting out in this industry. Because one, I understood a little bit about how you tell your own story, how you shape a story about yourself and how you might connect with media from the perspective of somebody who was talent and trying to get publicity for talent. So now being kind of the other side of it, like I am talent, but I am the media. I am the press that, a brand is looking to receive coverage by. So understanding that, I kind of could craft my messaging to brands. I understood how to reach out to brands, and I got a good idea of like, who am I looking to reach out to? And that would be people who are on their press team, people on their marketing team who are doing communications. And so even though when I started, there wasn't so much an influencer industry, so you didn't have that particular department. Now I would say it's even easier because yes, it's a competitive industry, but it's an established industry. So now you're reaching out to brands. They know exactly what you mean when you're offering the deliverables, when you're offering
there's a dedicated
publicity.
Budget bucket that
they have
like,
a
this
budget.
is for creators.
Exactly. They have a specific person who's receiving that email who knows how the mind works and the game works, and they're willing to have that conversation with you. So yeah, reaching out to brands has definitely similarly similarly been a big catalyst for me on how I've been able to, one, stay not to say relevant, but stay working in this industry because it is competitive.
Yeah.
But it's also huge. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity out there.
And growing. The market,
And
obviously.
growing.
The budget's
I mean, you know it
dedicated.
better than I do. You guys work on, both sides of the coin.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast is that I
Mm-hmm.
really think that this is where the entire paid media industry is going to end up, is with creators. Mm-hmm. Hopefully creators are not AI. So that's my
I
hope.
know. Fingers crossed, I'm with you.
But you're not the first creator that's told me on this podcast that like
Mm-hmm.
how instrumental it's been to fearlessly reach out to the brands that you want to work with. Like I've had people say they stalk people on LinkedIn, they reach out there, they send DMs. I think like press release, that's even more clever because usually a brand will have like big news or a new feature or like a new camera on the Pixel that they're like, oh, this is a great timing. Having a home run partnership, whether it's a company like Matador or a creator like yourself, is just like right place, right time. I think the press release, that's a really good tip.
There's a game to it, and you got to have a thick skin, and you got to have consistency and resilience and a strategy. But at the end of the day, when you do get those responses and now you're going with Google to, this massive brand that you admire and have enjoyed for all these years, now you're going on trips with them, now you're working with them directly, now they're reaching out to you and saying, hey, we loved this project you did for us, we'd love to bring you back in this capacity or that capacity. Or similarly, I've worked with hair brands where I reached out directly myself, and now we've worked together on a second year where I'm making over 6 figures in that partnership. And that's a cold email. It's like, would they have found me? Quite possibly. I create content in the hair space, but taking that initiative myself allowed me to make additional income that maybe wouldn't have been available to me otherwise. And so I always tell people, if you're a creator and you're working in these spaces, even if you're new, there's so many ways that you can market yourself. Whether you want to lean into your audience size, if you've cultivated a great audience online, maybe that is a strength for you. But if it's not, because you're newer to the space, well, maybe you're great at storytelling. Maybe you're good at creating quality content. I mean, you definitely see it in the travel space where people are offering hotels, to do some amazing recap videos or do some amazing photography for them. And they're able to get paid for usage rights and whitelisting access and all these other things that are not related or not dependent on your audience size, So yeah, I would tell people
it's since I started this podcast, I found that not everyone shares exactly how much they're making, and I don't want to like push too much with that, but
sure,
I found that it's almost no correlation. There's like some people who with 12 million followers who are struggling, and there are people with 150,000 followers who are absolutely crushing it. So
I know someone who's got, I think they're at like 40,000, and another friend who's at 20,000 followers. They make over 6 figures.
Yeah.
And I tell people I used to work in public relations, and I absolutely loved that industry. But I don't think at 10 years into the industry, I would have been able to make the financial growth that I have working as a content creator. So even on my slow years, which, I'm happy to touch on, I think I've shared lots of things around the ups and downs of working in this space. But even on my slowest years, I've still made more money. And even the things that we can't put a price tag on, the opportunities, the access, the free things, the time freedom too, but even the trips and all the invites and stuff that like, well, I would have spent $10,000 to go to crop over, but now I'm going with the tourism board.
Right.
Things that there's a lot of benefits that you can, that have a monetary value. But when I look at that, I'm like, I still make more on those slowest times than I think I would have made in the public relations industry, at least based on my knowledge from my previous experience.
Why do you love Carnival, and why do you like? Tell me about your history with the celebration.
Sure.
Obviously, it's like celebrated all over the world, but how did you get started, and why do you keep going back?
So in England, they've got Notting Hill Carnival, which is a great time. And in my younger years when I was living there, it's in London, I would go with friends, and you see like all this beautiful like Caribbean heritage and everybody come together from that community, which I do not have any Caribbean heritage. I just, by way of being Black and being around Caribbean culture, I have enjoyed it and loved it. And so I always said to myself, I'd love to go to a carnival that's on a Caribbean island, because doing it in London is going to be very different than doing it on the beaches or the streets of Barbados or Jamaica or St. Lucia or Belize or Trinidad, which is to me, one of the most amazing ones. And so I always set the goal of one day wanting to go. And I went to crop over in Barbados, and that was really an extension of a relationship I had with JetBlue. I was working with them already. They were having me go to different destinations and doing blog features, showcasing, basically promoting that route, so that airline route from whatever U.S. destination to whatever Caribbean destination or Colombian or different places. And so I reached out to them and I was like, Barbados has a crop over. It looks like it'd be amazing. I think that'd be a really cool feature for JetBlue to highlight. You being a great route to be able to get to the island. And they were like, sure, we'd love to work with you on that. And I was me and a +1. They flew out my cameraman. They already had the relationship with the tourism board, obviously, by being the airline.
Sure.
And they had relationships with the hotels. So they connected us with everybody that we needed to be connected with. And again, I reached out to a hair brand because I would love to get paid. That opportunity, I don't think, was paid by those tourism operators. So I don't think JetBlue paid. I think it was an exchange. So I went to crop over, and the rest was history. Fell in love with the music, fell in love with the energy of the people, fell in love with the sense of freedom you get from it. It's very body positive. You are really, if you feel any apprehension or like lack of confidence in your body in some way, when you go to a carnival experience, all of that, like those inhibitions, those insecurities just fade away because everyone is so loving and welcoming and encouraging, and it's just this beautiful experience. And they say carnival is woman because it really is about this like female liberation and freedom, and it's just it's one of the most beautiful experiences I've done.
And you are in the parade. You're not a spectator. You're full.
No, well, I think the Caribbean Carnival and then like Carnival in Brazil are quite different in that way. And I think in Brazil there is a little, it's a bit more strict in terms of who's actually performing. I think those are people who are part of the bands. They've been doing it. They've been training.
They're like probably different like neighborhoods that all get together.
But they're people who like formally do it and they apply and get approved, I guess. From my knowledge, I'm not too knowledgeable about the Brazilian Carnival. No, because it's the same weekend as Trinidad Carnival. They do the same calendar. And
you said Trinidad's number one for you.
For me, yes.
Why is that?
I love Trinidad. I love Trini culture. I love the carnival experience there. It's a 2-day carnival, so you go on Carnival Monday and Carnival Tuesday, whereas a lot of the other one are just one. And it also is one of the biggest in the Caribbean. It might be the biggest. I don't have all the stats, but it is huge, and it is just it's just like an Olympic experience because you are going morning, noon, and night leading up to the actual carnival experience. You have so many fetes. Not only do you have like the local culture and all like the heritage of it and the history of it, you also have people coming internationally from all over the world. So as somebody who just enjoys meeting people and enjoys connecting with different people, again, it is this like sense of freedom. It's this sense of like community. There's families there. There's people of all ages there. There's kids there. I've always taken off my backpack and you give it to a kid who's there to, be a spectator along the road. And it's just wonderful and welcoming. And I always leave with new friends.
And the destination itself, amazing place to visit. Sounds like you love the people. Because I feel like it's kind of like not on the trail that most people go to.
I will say, I think Trinidad itself, in terms of people, culture, food, absolutely phenomenal. But I don't think they have the biggest attraction in terms of their beaches. Most people go to Tobago for that like white sand, clear water beaches. Trinidad, you really are kind of going there for the culture. It's a bit more of an industrial island. So while they have absolutely beautiful waterfalls and all these beautiful places on the island, it's just not somewhere I think that people know to go for beaches in that traditional like island vacation. But as far as Carnival goes, phenomenal. It's definitely one of the biggest ones. The island is jam-packed. The accommodations are fully booked like months out from the carnival, let alone if you try to go last minute.
So it sounds like things are going really, really well. What about the hard side of being a creator? I've seen a couple posts that you did about the frustration, dealing with rejection or the ups and downs, the volatility. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the blessings and curses that came with my home ownership journey was owning a home is a lot more expensive than what it was in my lifestyle as an apartment living. So when there was a learning curve and a growing pains for me, going from being someone who lived in an apartment to then buying a home where I took all the cash that I had, in my accounts that really could have been being way more productively used, but all the cash that I invested in my down payment on my home, that cushion that was used to over the last how many years was no longer there. So when I bought my house, I would say that year was a little bit slower, but I also had this whole new expense of the mortgage is one thing, but it was really the decorating, the renovations, the making the house my own. Again, I was super intentional about making it this kind of like a set that I can create really impactful content in. And so for me, when I hit my moment, like I guess kind of like a lowest point in my influence experience, it was 2023, end of 2023. I think it was like November. I'd sat down and I had some great partnerships. Again, making more money than I think I would have made in another industry, but my expenses were higher and it was a slower year for me and I didn't calculate accordingly. So yeah, November 2023, I found myself with a actual countdown of when I knew I was going to run out of cash. Like the amount of cash that was coming in for me and my monthly expenses, mind you, without hoping any health disasters or other issues were going to occur,
If
right?
everything
This is if
everything's normal.
Yeah, if I'm just living on my little ramen noodles and whatever the case is, I can make this money last me, I think, until end of February, beginning of March of 2024.
Whoa, stressful.
And as a homeowner, I'm like, oh my God, when that happens, if that March point came around and I hadn't gotten some new brand deals, I, in that moment, would have not been able to pay for my mortgage.
Yeah.
I would have had no emergency fund. I have no way to pay my credit cards, nothing. I had about $20K in rolling credit card debt, which interest rates on credit cards are insane. So when we talk about the struggles, I think, of being a content creator, is a lot of it is business management. I think some of us come into this industry and we have no real entrepreneurship experience or knowledge. And so we don't necessarily know some of the financial things that we should do, like set up an emergency fund. I recommend anybody out there, if you work as a creative or an entrepreneur in some way where your income is not consistent, you need to have a 6 to 9 month, minimum 3 months, but 6 to 9 months worth of income in your emergency fund, so that if you have a slow period, you are not in a position where you might lose where you live, your car payment, or whatever, that you might have a health scare that you can't afford. You know what I mean? You want to have an emergency fund set aside. But yeah, so I would say some of the struggles that I had to overcome financially. When I got to November and I had that little countdown, that's where I had to lean into pitching, because I knew that the industry is lucrative. I knew that there's a lot of money to be made, and I knew that if you have a strategy and if you're consistent, if you create content, if you nurture your relationships, that you can be successful. And to your point, there's not a direct correlation between your audience size and how much money you can make. So while some people might have 20 to 40,000 followers, they're still making again, my friend at 20,000 followers making 6 figures, a friend at 40,000 followers making $250,000. Absolutely incredible numbers that you would not always expect. But that comes from treating it like a business, being business savvy, really it's not just a hobby, it's not just for fun. You are giving yourself schedules and strategies and you're consistent. But yeah, so with that in mind, I knew there's no reason that I can't make more money. How do I do that? One, create more content strategically. So I kind of give myself a new content plan, sat back, reflected, said which content niches do I excel in, which ones am I passionate about, which ones do I find pays more. So let's lean into those. And then 2, reach out to the brands. If I'm not finding that I'm getting a lot of work coming into me, that to me, if you don't have a lot of work coming in, there's no reason why you can't be reaching out to brands. If you are fully booked and you're at the end of your tether and you've got no more time to be creating or working with brands or creating additional content, don't worry about it. You don't need to be reaching out to brands at that point. Cool, focus on the work you have, nurture those relationships, continue to build and hopefully get more campaigns. But yeah, if you're in a slow period, reach out to brands. You're still a creative. Don't doubt your creative capacity. Don't doubt your resources. Don't doubt your ability in the importance of your platform and your voice and your storytelling. Just realize okay, it's a slow period. I don't have the relationships. I don't have the workflow at this time. Reach out to brands, cultivate your ideas, lean into the things that you're most passionate about, that you have your audience might ask you the most about. So for me, leaning into my home decor, shockingly, it definitely, again, I created home decor as a backdrop for my other content, right? To make my other content more exciting and engaging. I didn't realize that home decor was now
home
about
decor
to become,
deals.
that I was going to be working with brands, and that it was also going to be one of the biggest catalysts for me growing my platform. Since I was stagnant in my platform growth for probably like 4 or 5 years of like maybe the same 10, 15,000 followers, gaining and losing them as well. So like just in this, like, I think I was around 300 to 330,000 followers kind of for a continuous period. And I grew about 100,000 followers just over about a year and a half from
Since you
doing home
started
decor
redoing
content
your
more
house.
consistently.
Yeah.
My home decor journey has probably been about 2.5 years, but it did take that first year of cultivating that audience around that topic, right? Like, and I think that's something that people should remember as well. Like, if you haven't done a lot of beauty, or if you haven't done a lot of lifestyle content, a lot of home decor content, that your audience may not be that keen on it or that interested, because that's not what they followed you for. But if that's
That
something you're
doesn't mean
passionate
they
about,
can't get excited about it if you start
it doesn't
doing
mean that they can't get excited about it, but it also doesn't mean that you can't then create that content and attract this new audience that is engaged with that. It might be your new chapter, right? For some people, that might be motherhood. For some people, that might be their relationship or their partnership. For some people, that might be they've picked up and moved abroad to a whole new country, and now they're sharing life, starting like new beginnings. Like, there's a lot of different ways that we evolve and that we have new chapters. And so if you're someone who wants to be able to share that aspect of your life, then yeah, you might have a little learning curve at the beginning, but ultimately that audience will come and it'll grow and people will engage with you, and you'll be able to find a stronger relationship for that content and that topic. So yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, if you're going to try a new venture, don't shy away from going in that direction, and also really lean into your storytelling. So I definitely recommend people lean in to telling and expressing themselves authentically and more deeply.
Great advice. Well, this has been great. So much good advice for other creators. And one question I ask everyone, Rene, and this will be interesting for you because you're very well traveled. If your passport only worked in 3 countries for the rest of your life, you could only live or visit 3 countries only, what would those countries be?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, based on the things I'm most passionate about, definitely French Polynesia.
I knew that was going to be one.
I need to be able to go diving with the Humpback whales. I also just really enjoyed the culture there, and the environment is beautiful. Definitely Trinidad. It may not have the most white, sandy, and turquoise blue water beaches, but the culture, the community, the energy, it is something that, like, I can't even talk. It's like a magnet. Every time I land and I attend Carnival, or even just when I connect with different people from Trinidad and I might meet them in different places around the world, there is so much synergy in terms of that, like, beautiful magnetic energy. And I think the third place, so I've got somewhere to dive, I've got somewhere for Carnival. My favorite place I've ever lived is Paris. And I think, not everyone has the same experience when they go to Paris, but I lived there after living in New York. I finished my undergrad in New York and I moved there for my master's program. And living in Paris, I'd moved on the back end of a heartbreak, and I just was, grasping at, like, falling back in love with life. And I just found the lifestyle that I experienced living in Paris during my master's to be so beautiful and enriching. Like, just going to the local markets, eating seasonally. Everybody is bisous, bon appetit. Like, everyone's just so friendly and loving and, like, fun. And not everybody, but everybody I met anyway. And the life that I was able to cultivate there was really beautiful. So for me, I think those are the 3 destinations.
French Polynesia, Trinidad, and France.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's definitely a combo we've never had.
I'm sure. Yeah. Those have just resonated with me. I'm going to have to go back and listen and see what other people have said.
And if someone does not follow you, where can people find you online?
So all my social media handles are Owned by Femme. It's OWNBYFEMME. And my YouTube is Owned by Femme TV. So you can find me on all those platforms.
And why the name Owned by Femme? Where did that come from?
There was this gay guy that I'd met who used to say, she owned this or he owned that. And there was just the confidence that he navigated the world with. And I loved that saying, like, owning something. Just owning your femininity, owning who you are and defining it, and living the world that way without letting anyone else change it for you.
Love it. I can't believe I've never asked you that before. Thanks for coming on the pod, Rene.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
Creator, the podcast, is produced by Matador Network. We are a leading global travel publisher focused on travel and adventure. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe. Every week, I interview a new top creator. New episodes are released every Tuesday on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere podcasts are found. Thanks for listening.